Um, Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April Real Talk About Real Estate. My name is Michelle, and I am the marketing lead for the ABR designation. Today, I'm joined by Margo Wheeler, who is a broker at John L. Scott Real Estate in Washington State. She's also a retired U.S. Army First Sergeant. This month, we're talking about how important it is to set expectations for your clients, especially in today's crazy market. As a reminder, we are live, so if you have any questions or just want to say hi, leave us a like or comment on the video. Margo, tell us what we need to know.
Thanks a lot, Michelle, and thanks for having me. You are absolutely correct. Number one, and setting expectations is critical, as well as the fact that we are in a crazy market. So both of those things together mean that we have to make sure that we set expectations in order to help our clients to start on a path to success, to ensure that their home buying the home buying process is as smooth as possible and also a good experience for them. So when I think about working with clients and working with buyers, anytime that I work with a buyer client, it is always as a buyer agent, as a buyer representative, so that they can know that they are totally being advised and taken care of as much as possible. The first step always for me when I work with a buyer, whether it's one that's been referred to me or one that I meet, one that I connect with, it is to set up a buyer consultation. And that is really the key that's going to help me to set their expectations. And when you think about this, when you think about having a buyer consult, we just have to relate it to everything else we do in life. When we are meeting with our financial planner, when we're meeting with any of our service providers, even with my hairstylist, she needed to have a consult to make sure that she was going to provide the best services for my type of hair. So it's the same thing when you think about us meeting with clients and setting up a buyer consultation.
So,
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to
No,
say,
yeah, go ahead.
so where do you get, where do you start with that? Like, what goes into your presentation?
Well, that's a great question. So I'm going to touch on that. You know, First of all, let me just go back a little bit and say, why do I think it's so important for us to have that buyer consult? It is really important for us to establish that rapport with the client. It's really important for us to also set a tone and, even to find out, if this is someone who we can mesh with, who really we can relate with. And so that's why it's so important for us to just start off on the right foot, I like to say, by having that buyer consultation. And then when you just ask, where do I start with this? What do I have in this? Certainly, I have a buyer packet that I go through, but when I'm thinking about a buyer consultation, what's really key for me is to figure out how it's going to happen. How am I going to conduct it? Am I going to use Zoom, which I will say that's the one thing out of the pandemic that has turned out just to be just fantastic as far as my connecting with my clients. And the reason that I say that is simply because of the flexibility. I mean, my clients, if they're getting off work at late hours or at odd hours, we can still set up a consultation and I can reach out and connect with them. As long as I'm flexible, I can work around my schedule, I can work around their schedule, and we can get together. So when I conduct a buyer consultation, whether it's Zoom or in person, it's pretty similar. So with a Zoom, I send out a packet. You ask what's in the packet. When I send out a buyer consultation packet, what I include are number one, our state agency pamphlet. I also include our fair housing, our NAR, fair housing declaration, so that everyone, and I always discuss it to let every client know that this is the way I conduct my business in compliance with the Fair Housing Act, which of course this is Fair Housing Month.
Mhm.
So we go through that. I also have a copy of a buyer agency agreement so that they're familiar with it right from the beginning, because every client, every buyer I work with, I have them sign a buyer agency agreement. Now, for me, they don't sign it immediately, but the first time we go out, after we go out, I have them sign that, because by then we've went through a consult. They feel very comfortable. They know we want to work together, and I feel comfortable that I want to work with them.
So, have you ever had someone say that they did not want to sign the contract?
You know what? That's a great question, because when I first started in the business and when I
Yeah.
first started using a buyer agency agreement, that was something that would happen. People would be a little bit leery about it. But I have to say, I just make this the way that I conduct my business, just as when I'm doing a listing agreement with my sellers and I just go through the forms and everything else. This is just part of the way I do business. If you don't want to sign a buyer agency agreement, and like I said, when we first do the consult, they
Mhm.
don't have to sign it. But after, when we go out and we know that we do feel comfortable with each other and that I am actually working on their behalf, then they will sign it. And if they don't want to sign it at that time, then I don't think that this is the person that I need to work with. So,
Right.
100%, I work with all my clients and use a buyer agency agreement.
That's great to hear. And I know not all of our designees choose to use them. And I think it's for a variety of reasons, but it sounds like your procedure, like that sounds like the perfect plan because, they're comfortable with you and there's no reason at that point, once they've gone out and looked at the first property with you, why they wouldn't, want to, have you as their agent.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I have to say also, and I share this with them, if you go to an open house, and I'm not with you because now that we can actually hold open houses again, they are out there, then I just tell them you can just go in and let the agent know, the broker there, that you actually have a buyer's agent's agreement signed with another realtor. So that makes them feel a little more comfortable also as they look at open houses, because even if you're not with them, if there's a sign outside, clients might still go in. So,
Right.
along with that buyer agency agreement, also I have a wants and needs worksheet that I have them complete, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. And then for us here in Washington, where I'm located, we also have a COVID protocol showing worksheet that we have them sign. It's very short, but it's just to make sure that they are comfortable. And if anything happened where we went to a house, that we would be able to trace it and go back and let them know.
Um,
And
oh,
mhm, go
sorry, I
ahead.
just wanted to
Go
interrupt. We
ahead.
have a question from the audience. Chris wanted to know if you are showing houses prior to having a pre-approval in hand.
That's a great question, Chris. No. It is, just as Michelle started off saying that it's a crazy time to buy, and be in the home buying or selling process, uh, anytime that an offerer, if my client sees a home that they want and they want to write an offer, it is incumbent upon them to have a pre-approval letter to, to accompany that offer. So no, I do not show homes. And that's one of the things I do. I immediately, in that initial consult, I can find out if they have talked to a lender. If not, I can connect them with lenders, and I usually will give them more than one name so they can make the choice themselves. But I make sure that they get pre-approved, which helps them to be comfortable with the pricing that we're looking at. And also they know what their max is. They can draw the line, not me, but they have that opportunity based on what they found out from the lender. So I make sure they're pre-approved. So thanks for asking that. So again, COVID protocol showing because form, because here in Washington, still at this time, you cannot just go show a home. We used to could drive down the street and you could see a house, and if it had a sign, you can pull it up and go ahead and show it. But now every home has to have an appointment. And so we go through that process. And then the last thing that's in the packet that I have for them, or either email to them or when we sit down in person that I provide to them, is a presentation, a buyer presentation booklet. And we go through it, which explains the home buying process from A to Z so that they can feel very comfortable with it. So again, with this buyer consult, when I schedule it via Zoom, I email all of this out to them. And if we're in person, I actually sit down and I provide them a folder with the information and we go through it. And at least in person, sometimes they have even more questions because we can take a little bit more time. And they get one of my famous calendars from Teldon. Actually, just we're all about marketing. We always want to make sure our clients can stay in contact. So that's the why and the how of the buyer consult. But setting the expectations during the buyer consult, some of the things that I touch on, of course, are the market. And that's really key because buyers can get very frustrated when they have to put in multiple offers time and time if they don't get those offers accepted. And I always explain it like this. If there's a property that is priced affordably, then there are going to be a lot of buyers that would like to make an offer on that property. And if 10 or 15 buyers make an offer, 9 or 14 are not going to get the house. And so we just have to keep on. And my job is not only to advise them, but also to make sure that they understand it's a process and not to stress, not to be frustrated. All of that is part of the process. You just keep on. So setting the expectations, it's all about making sure they understand the market. They understand that it is a competitive market. They also, setting the expectation is to explain what I do. I mentioned about them having a buyer agency agreement. I also mentioned about the buyer, our agency pamphlet that I provide to them, which explains my responsibilities as well as that listing agent's responsibilities. And I emphasize the importance of having someone looking out for them, working on their behalf, and that's that buyer agent. And we also talk about when we set expectations, what is your timeline? You know, as well as what's the best way for me to stay in communications and contact with you. A lot of my clients text, and some of my clients email, and some of my clients are by phone. And some of my clients, when I email them, I need to text them that I'm emailing them so they will check their email. But that's part of the expectations, as well as explaining the team that's working on their behalf, myself as well as their lender, our title and escrow, all of the players in the home buying process. I want to set the expectations that these individuals are working on their behalf, but also how they work on their behalf. And then setting, as I've set the expectations, the last step in the process is to go through the needs and wants assessment. And that is critical in the process because I need to know what's important to them. For some of my clients, it may be important that they have a garage. For others, it may be that they have a gourmet kitchen because he cooks or she cooks or whatever, So, and then some have furry family members and they're buying the house for them, actually. So, all of these things are really important. And especially if there are any special needs in the family, I need to find out that. And I use a needs and wants assessment checklist, which is part of the packet, which I might not mention, but that's part of the packet that they receive also. And one of the best ones we have as ABRs is in the CRD toolkit. And that has a very comprehensive needs and wants assessment that you can do with your clients. So again, those are some of the things that I use to make sure that I'm setting those expectations for my clients, that I'm making sure I'm meeting their needs, that we're very realistic about the market, that we understand the market, that they understand it's a team effort, because whether they're using my mobile app or any other application or search product out there, that it is key for us to stay in contact, stay connected, so that we can make sure we are reactive very quickly to the market. So I just want to say it's important to have a system. So that's part
Totally.
of the system. Yeah.
I love systems. I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of systems. Kimberly, who's watching, asked if you could please recap the steps that Margo takes in your buyer consultation.
In my buyer's consultation. Okay, great. Thank you for that question. And what I do is, of course, I've set up my buyer consult via Zoom or in person. I email a packet out to them. Or if it's in person, then I'll bring the packet. But I have in that packet the agency pamphlet, my fair housing declaration, my buyer agency agreement. We go over the wants and needs worksheet, and I have them fill it out. Also, any type of showing protocol, we go through that. And then I also have a buyer presentation that covers everything from A to Z in the process, to include explaining about inspections, appraisals, contingencies, and everything else like that, to set their expectations for the process. That's kind of how I go through and do my buyer consult. Yeah, those.
Thank
So
you.
thanks for that question. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Kimberly.
So, in a nutshell, what I think is really the key, certainly, is to set up that buyer consult. That's really important, and having a system for it so that each buyer, and when I say each buyer, even my return clients, buyers that have purchased from me before, because it may have been 5, 10 years, maybe 15 years, we still go through because they need to understand the market and maybe some of the changes in the forms. There's never a question about signing a buyer agency agreement with them, but making sure that we set those expectations after we've set up the consultation, and making sure that we complete the wants and needs worksheet. And then, using the forms, the information that we get.
That's great. We have another question. Let's see. Chris wants to know, how much time do you plan on the consult taking?
That's another good question. Okay. Typically, when I do Zoom, usually it's about a 45-minute time frame. Now, it may or may not take 45 minutes. If they are an experienced buyer, especially if they've been referred and they're selling the house someplace else and they purchased previously, they may not have as many questions. However, 45 minutes, I would say, on Zoom. And I will say that when it's in person, typically either it's at my office or at a restaurant, IHOP or someplace else, Applebee's, someplace where they can relax. And that's at least an hour because we start talking. So, that's kind of how I roll. So 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah.
We've got another question. Dave wants to know, do you mention wire fraud issues in the buyer consultation?
Actually, I just briefly, because that's an escrow thing, and yes, and I let them know that typically most of my clients now don't write checks. They usually do wire the funds directly to escrow, but I do touch on it, and we actually have a form when we do a purchase and sales that we put in there also about wire fraud. So great question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Very good stuff. Love all the engagement so far. If you have any more questions, like let us have them. We want to hear what you have to say. So, um, Margo, did you have more to say about your process or?
That's
Okay.
that's
I
pretty
wanted to make
much,
sure because
yeah.
I cut you off with all the questions, so I want to make
No,
sure
no, I
that
love
you
it.
got through everything. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So Margo did mention the CRD toolkit. So if you go to store.realtor and you search for CRD, you'll see some CRD toolkits come up, and they are from the ABR course, and they are from some of the Reback elective courses. And if you haven't taken the ABR course in a while, that toolkit is really great. Like Margo said, it's got some worksheets in there. And some of the other toolkits are great too, even if you haven't taken those courses. Just some good worksheets on real estate investing and marketing and things like that. So, really great stuff available for you. And then I also want to mention that we have the ABR virtual course. It's a live virtual course with Lynn Madison happening on June 7th and 8th. We will have a registration page up shortly with more information, but save those dates if you would like to take the ABR course again. If it's been a while, or you just want a refresher, Lynn Madison's a great teacher, former Real Talk presenter. And so that's coming up in June. And then I also want to mention, I asked Margo yesterday when we were kind of talking about today, I said, like, tell me about like some of the member benefits, the Reback member benefits that you like. And she mentioned the Today's Buyers Rep, the TBR. So just want to remind everyone that that's available to you as well. Hopefully you get that every month in the mail. If not, you can check it out. We send it out every month via email in our digital digest. And then it's always in the member center at abr.realtor as well. So just want to make sure everyone knows about those great things. I don't see any other questions, but Margo is in this Facebook group. So if you have any questions after the fact, you can tag her in the post for this video, and she will be able to answer them at a later time. And I think that pretty much wraps up for today. So thank you. Oh, go ahead,
One more
Margo.
thing. Let me just add
Yeah,
one more thing.
go for it.
First of all, I just want to say, taking a course from Lynn Madison is a treat. She is so experienced and she has lots of knowledge and tips for you. And as Michelle has already mentioned, the CRD, go and get those tools. You can definitely use those tools immediately. Of course, I love getting the hot sheet, the monthly update and information. And last but not least, I like to say that I have designations. And when I'm getting ready to refer, I look for someone who has a similar designation. So if I'm referring a buyer, I want to make sure it's an ABR. If I'm referring a military person, I like to refer them to an MRP. So get the ABR. You will definitely benefit from it. So thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Margo. And thank you to everyone for joining us. We hope you are now feeling especially inspired and motivated to understand the wants and needs of your buyer clients. Please join us next month with Robert Morris, and we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.